The piece around technology is an interesting one, again, if you think about where money fits in. Because if you look at the amount of, particularly federal government investment in digital education revolution, in a lot of these things, it's hard to argue that we actually need more money. But I guess the trouble is that that's not always filtering down to schools. And until we actually culturally change the mindset about how we use technology, you can have as many devices or as many platforms as you want, but we won't actually be making the most from them. And what I talk about quite a bit is that we can talk about all of these 21st century skills that we really believe are fundamental for young people, and we can talk about all of the devices that can enable that. However, while we still continue to have a very narrow view of what success is in learning, I don't think we're going to see the type of shift that we really need around 21st century skills and around them being taken far more seriously than they are. If we speak to business and industry, if we speak to non-profits working in the community sector, no matter who you speak to, there's a lot of commonality with what we all want from education for every young person. We want young people to be confident as a learner, to have experienced success as a learner, to be able to deal with problems in a logical and also in a creative way. We want them to be creative. We want them to be a responsible decision maker and a good contributor to the world. There's a whole lot of things that are hard to argue with, and yet the type of metrics that we impose, particularly on schools, but certainly other groups within education as well, in my personal view, are increasingly narrow and are doing a real disservice to the work that is actually happening in all of our learning settings in our communities. And so something that I think we really need to start with is to take a few steps back and say, what is success? When we're working with young people in a range of different settings, what does success look like? And to think that we can judge success based on a single number at the end of year 12, to think we can base it on NAPLAN results along the way through school. I'm not saying that we should diminish how important a lot of these indicators are, but to think that that is all we need to understand how young people are really going and to understand the real role that our schools and our TAFEs and our RTOs and others are playing, I think we really need to look at this more broadly. What you'll see here is just a list taken directly from a dictionary about what is success. And I'd really encourage you over the discussion today to think about, in the setting that you represent, what does success look like? And I have a great opportunity on a number of occasions to speak to groups of school principals. And when you actually push really hard on this, there's a lot of ways that traditionally our schools honour success and celebrate success. And there's a lot of really easy ways to identify that, particularly around sport and particularly around academic performance. And so it's not uncommon that at the VCE awards night, we would single out, en masse, those students that have achieved academic excellence in particular subject areas. How often do we celebrate the year 10 student that's left and become a chef in one of Melbourne's top restaurants? Like, how do we genuinely really value multiple pathways? And I think we need to really reflect on what messages we're sending to the community about what success looks like and about how we really value it. And this is almost like a whole new PR job that schools and different learning environments really need to do. To think, because I don't believe we can wait for government to come up with an entire new set of metrics about what we really value and how we measure that and what that looks like. I think locally we need to be deciding what that looks like for ourselves. And I think we need to be asking students how they believe their success should be measured. I think we need to be asking parents and industry and coming up with something that makes sense for your local context about what success looks like. And what are the things that we all agree that we want to deliver for young people. And ultimately, that's what we need to be measuring our schools and our TAFEs and our RTOs and our community centres and everything else by how they're contributing to that. Because frankly, to say that literacy and numeracy is our goal, in education, I think is setting a very, very low bar. Of course, we want all young people to be able to read and write, in an academic sense, but I think we need to raise the expectation and be far more aspirational in the type of human beings that we want to be, helping create. You've all seen slides like this one before, but I think it's good to reflect on where a lot of our system, not just of education, but the measurement that's wrapped around education, where that was actually born and where it comes from and why it exists. And it's certainly from, more of an industrial era than a, technological or information age like we find ourselves in now. This statistic, I think, is a really important one. So the top 10 in-demand jobs in 2010 didn't exist in 2004. So if a goal of the institution or the school or whatever you might represent is that we have young people that are job ready, whatever that might mean, this statistic, I think, is critically important. Because as much as we can have data about growth areas and about what we think the jobs are, chances are we'll either be wrong altogether or we'll only see 20% of what's actually about to hit us in terms of opportunity and in terms of the type of challenges that young people really need. And if we really drill down to what does that mean and what does that look like in terms of skill development, we need far more emphasis put on more generic skills around decision making, problem solving, identifying opportunity, being entrepreneurial, rather than a lot of the very traditional skills that we promote now. So basically, we want every single learner to be able to solve problems that we don't even know are problems yet, and we want them to do it using technologies that haven't even been invented yet. I don't mean to overwhelm everyone and make you think that our work is impossible, because it's not. But I do want to really make the point that if we don't think differently and if we don't keep up with what is happening in other parts of the world, all we're doing is a huge disservice to young people. Because as with your comment before, the rate of, access to information, access to technology, access to connecting to people and ideas and to different places really quickly, we've never seen an era like that before. And if we don't teach young people how to really seize that opportunity and be responsible in it, then I think we really are doing them a disservice now and in their later life. Again, preparing today's students for jobs that haven't even been invented. And the type of learning we encouraged and measured in the last century will not serve us in the next century. And if you look at most of the highest performing systems of school education as just one example, you will see that they really understand this. In that video you saw South Korea, an example from South Korea, who a lot of their school education system is moving in terms of what and how it measures. And the three things they want to measure are creativity, confidence and collaboration. Now if you can imagine, what does that mean about standardized testing if what we're looking for is confidence, creativity and collaboration? It's a completely different scenario. And I guess the real challenge for us locally is to think about what is it that we really value and are we measuring what we value? Because the flip side of that you've all heard before is, do we value what we measure or do we measure what we value? And I think at the moment we could make a case that we've got it around the wrong way. One of the biggest challenges that I think we face is we don't have a shared idea, and this is true internationally, this is true nationally, and it's true very locally, that we don't have a shared, clear, articulated view of what a good education looks like. And we can say that an ATAR result is one indicator. We can say retention is one indicator. We can say that take-up of apprenticeships and traineeships is one indicator. But a lot of these really is just about starting on a pathway, rather than genuinely having the type of skills that it will take young people to succeed in the 21st century. And again, to do that, I think we need to think far more broadly about what these skills are and about how they're developed. And the reality is, they're being developed now anyway. And this is really not unfamiliar territory, because in a lot of ways it's what you do anyway. But what we need to have is a system and structure and measures that really capture the value of this work and the value of the impact that you're having on young people, and actually gives them a far more, I guess, holistic view of themselves and of their skills and of their strengths and of their capacity. These are two of my favourite people in the world, and I use them as examples because they really, to me, embody the type of education that we need to be giving every young person. So Troy Jones grew up in Adelaide, so he's just turned 30, grew up in Adelaide and had a great time at high school and loved filmmaking. Loved, at every opportunity, had his camera out at every event, every sport day, the Year 12 formal, graduation, whatever was happening, he would always be there with his camera. And he loves two things in life. He loves film and he loves money. And so he's from a very young age has been very determined to find a way to do both of those things, and can see an opportunity that not many other people could see. So captured all of this footage when he was in Year 12, edited that up into a really short, punchy piece, and then sold it for $50 a copy to every Year 12 student, and made a small fortune as a enterprising 17-year-old. Within 5 years, he'd built a company called Year 12 Video, and was doing this in 850 schools in 5 states, and made many millions of dollars doing that. He met a very, very attractive blonde woman called Stacey, who fell pregnant. Now, not many people would think, how can I make this into a money-making venture that involves film and making money? But he did. So Troy was really concerned as a young first-time dad that 99% of what he was reading and hearing about was geared only towards the young mum. And we're talking 5 or 10 years ago, couldn't find anything that was about, I'm going to be a young dad for the first time, I don't know what to expect.